Kaido is a leader that dominates the late game. His leader ability does make him a vanilla until that point, but when you're at that point of the game, his leader ability enables you to close out games very quickly. Basically, it's just an activate main once per turn, Don -7, which means you return the Don to your Don deck, in case you didn't already know. Then you trash one of your opponent's life. You can go for a huge 7 Don swing on Kaido, and then Don -7 to trash an opponent's life. And it's that kind of ability that makes this leader so good at closing out games. So let's take a look at the deck. First of all, I am running the standard purple blocker package, which is the 4 2-cost Black Maria, the 4 2-cost Kurozumi. You run 4 of both of these because you might want to play them in your early game against more offensive matchups to protect your life. They do have 1000 counter in case you're just using them to protect your life in that way as well, or maybe protect some of your developed board. But also you want some for the late game as well. I feel like you really do need to run the full set of both of these small blockers, because it helps you to get to that late game and enables you to protect your late game board. It also ensures that you are seeing these cards a lot because you're effectively running 8 copies of the same card. They're both just a blocker. The fact that this one's 3000 power, the fact this one's 2000 power doesn't really matter too much. You're basically just running 4 2-cost blockers, and that is incredibly good for this deck. Next up, I'm running my ramp card, which I am running 4 copies of Ulti for my ramp card. The reason I chose Ulti is because she is an on-play rest 1, ramp 1 rested. I personally find that to be a more powerful effect than Jack's, which is you have to discard one. So if you're going first and you're playing that on turn 3, or if you're playing that on turn 4, that can feel like a heavy cost to discard one, I find. And I'm playing this currently over Hold'em, though I think Hold'em is a very viable option because he also has 1k counter and his is an on KO ramp 1. I just like that Ulti, whenever I play her, I instantly get that ramp. But Hold'em, you can combo with cards like 10-cost Kaido. When you're wiping your own field, you can get value off of Hold'em's effect guaranteed. I would definitely consider playing Jack if you're watching this yourself. Next up, I am playing 4 Sasuke. He is a 2k counter that can ramp in the same way Jack can, but it's only on attacking. And then I'm playing 4 Ulti and 4 X-Drake, which means I am playing the full purple 12 2k counter set. Some people like to play the 1 cost, but I don't see the point in playing the 1 cost because I don't think that's a card you're ever going to play. It's a 1 cost 3000 power. I don't personally feel like I'm ever going to play that card. Sasuke has a playable effect to help you ramp. Ulti has a very playable stat line at 5000 power, can swing at any leader very easily. And X-Drake has an on-play rip 1 card from hand. So as much as I can, I actually try and save my X-Drakes without using the 2k counter on them, because I love just playing this and just ripping a card from your opponent's hand at the cost of Don -1. Next up, I am playing 3 copies of Babanuki. Babanuki is here in case I don't ramp. Honestly, I am tempted to just drop Babanuki from the deck and start playing the promo Kaidos. I only just got my 2 copies of the promo Kaido. Promo Kaido is basically an Onigashima on legs. It gives you a Don at the end of your turn and sets it as active, which I think is really powerful because then you can play your Blast Press on your opponent's turn off the Don you get back on this guy. It's a card I'm going to be testing out in Blurple Crocodile as well. I think you could do some really interesting Blurple Crocodile builds around this card. So please subscribe if you're interested in seeing that Blurple Crocodile build. For now, however, I think 3 Babanuki is just a really powerful card to play on curve if you're not seeing any of your ramp. You just play it, you have a 7000 power card instantly on the board, and he has 1k counter in case you do see your ramp. If I were to play promo Kaido over Babanuki, I would be switching from Ulti to Jack, because I feel like losing too much of that 1k counter power could be really detrimental for the deck. The other 5 costs we're running is 4 copies of Blocker Queen. I'm currently missing a copy of the starter deck, as I've said previously, so I've been playing this with proxies for now. But Queen here is just an exceptional blocker. It's an on-play, Don -1, draw 2 cards, trash 1 from your hands, which gives this deck much needed draw power. It doesn't really see it anywhere else. As well as the fact that it's a 6000 power, means your opponent can't just swing wide at you with 5k powers all the time now, because one of them will be able to be blocked by Queen. It forces your opponent to have to attack on higher values and play slightly narrower. Next, I am running my preferred king package of 2 6-cost, 2 7-cost king. I've seen a lot of Kaido decks run just 4 of king, as in any number of this, maybe 3 6-cost, 1 7-cost, or this 2-2 split. But I've also seen a lot run always 4 of this 6-cost king, which I think is a very viable thing to do. You could drop some Babanukis out to do that. If you're going second, you can always play this on curve. If you're going first and you see any ramp, you can play this on curve. So it is an incredibly powerful card you can play early with a really good stat line. So I could definitely see myself bumping this up in future, but for now I am currently running the 2 of 6-cost king and then the 2 of 7-cost king. I don't feel the need to change the amount of 7-cost king I'm currently playing. I really like 2 7-cost king. It helps in a lot of matchups where they're trying to play really wide into you, such as red or red-green and that kind of thing. But I can see myself increasing the count of 6-cost king because he's always a really good summon. And summoning this guy just feels so much better than summoning a card like Babanuki. However, he doesn't have counter, and that can be an issue for this deck. Next, I am running 2 of 9-cost Rush Kaido. This is definitely a card I want to try at 3 when I'm actually able to get my hands on 3 copies of this card. But for now, the 2 copies of this card are incredibly good. He's incredibly good at closing out games because he has Rush, because he can KO a 6-cost. If you're using your leader ability, you can play this guy on the next turn as well. Or you can play this guy first and then go into your leader ability next turn. Both work, but these guys can together make for an incredibly powerful combo for closing out games. If you're not just trying to close out the game, Kaido is still incredibly good, as he does KO a character with up to 6 cost. So you can use this to KO Green Blocker Law, you can use this in the mirror to KO Queens, or the 6-cost king, and you can use this to KO cards such as Unblockable Luffy. It's such an incredibly good versatile effect because it gives him Brush as well. The only downside is that heavy Don minus cost, and that's why I'm thinking of teching in this Kaido, so I can play this one first. Then I'd be able to get 2 Don off my Onigashima and promo Kaido in order to make this card's cost less heavy, and the same with the leader ability as well. Lastly, for the characters, I'm running 3 of 10 cost Kaido. This card is very, very good. I think my preferred split of these cards would be 3 of both. Unfortunately, I don't have that third 9-cost Kaido right now. But 10-cost Kaido is an on-play, Don minus 6, wipe the entire board. Does include your board, but it just wipes the whole thing. And as the name of the game in purple is board control, to set up a big massive swing, the fact that this guy has 12,000 power is setting up a big massive swing coming the following turn. If you're playing into a matchup like green, you can just save this 10-cost Kaido to play into a board state where your opponent has that 7-cost kid out, that 8-cost kid out, and just wipe it. You can use this to wipe Mihawks and Dofis and Crocodiles against blue. You can use this to wipe your opponent's entire board against purple and red. It's just such a good, effective card, and it sets you up in a position where your opponent is fearful for you ending the game because he has such high power. This card is near impossible for most decks to kill, and it's also very easy for you yourself to protect. So I am a huge fan of 10-drop Kaido. I would recommend running 3 of this and 3 of the other Kaido if you have them. I did look at every winning Kaido deck this year, and the vast majority of them, the ratio I saw was 3 9-cost Kaido, 3 10-cost Kaido. Some of them are running 2 of one of these and still 3 of the other. I think that 3-3 ratio could be incredibly good for this deck. Now for the events. We are running 4 Blast Breath because it is a 1-cost, Don minus 1, 4,000 power. It's just such an insanely good value card in this deck, particularly when you can easily ramp that back. This card is the reason your opponent can't really kill your higher cost cards because you can just hold Blast Breath in hand. So what if you put 9 or 10 Don on your leader to try and kill Kaido? All I need to do is drop a 2k counter or Blast Breath and he lives. But it's also another card that allows you to stay alive and reach the late game, which is really important for this deck. Then I'm running 2 copy of the Teabags. So I love Teabagging my opponent. I think Thunder Bagware is an incredibly good card. It's the same 4k counter power, which is really, really strong at keeping your cards and your leader alive, but also it enables you to ramp if you have 2 or less life cards, which is something that you can very easily get to in the early game and then use the Teabags here to get a free ramp off. Or you can use the Teabags here to get a ramp off in the late game. when you've already used your leader ability, or perhaps one of the 2 character Kaido's abilities. You can use the teabags here to ramp back that missing Don. It also does have the trigger effect of add 1 Don from your Don deck and set it as active, and I actually do use this sometimes. Don't sleep on the fact that this card has a trigger. It will be useful for you. Sometimes seeing this in the early game in your life when you don't have Onigashima or Ulti or Sasuke or something enables you to quickly get to the play you're wanting to make if it was dropping a 7-drop king or something. Or it helps you offset the loss of having made a big play the previous turn. And then lastly, we are of course running the 4 Onigashima, which if you don't already know is just an active main. Rest this stage, add 1 Don from your Don deck and rest it, which is the key part of this deck. You are going to be resetting to see Onigashima Island in your opening hand in basically every matchup, and I straight up can't really think of another card you're going to be resetting to see in this deck. The other quick options I would consider for this deck would be the Don minus hand control jack, but personally I don't feel the need to play that in this deck when I am playing the 4 copies of X-Drake, which rips from hand on summon and has the 2k counter in case I don't want to rip from hand. I think for this deck, this higher cost card is just much more value, whereas in other decks like Blurple Crocodile, where you need to be playing more lower cost because you aren't ramping as much as this deck can, I think Jack is more valuable. I also do really like Who's Who. I do see several Kaido decks playing 1 or 2 copies of this card, and I would consider knocking down a copy of Ulti or whatever ramper you have in this slot to add in 1 or 2 Who's Who's. It is a good card. It can help you control the board early against bad matchups for you like red. I just personally haven't found the need for this card myself. And then the last is Black Maria, which again, I just haven't found the need for this card myself. I think it's just too costly for what it does. Yes, it can be a 6k blocker like Queen can be, but I find playing this means I'm not playing the actual powerful cards I want to be playing instead, and I'd rather just save space for more powerful cards. So there you have the list. If you enjoyed, please do like, comment and subscribe. I reply to every comment, so I will see and I will let you know. And do subscribe if you are interested in seeing any lists I make around this prize Kaido card, which I think is going to be really interesting.